Hello, I'm Laura Washington, and I am delighted to be here with you today. Thank you so much for joining this CAYL webinar series. We are so happy to have you here. This webinar series is offered typically the first Thursday of every month at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, and we do it to bring essential conversations about children, families, and the early childhood workforce to you, people in our profession. All of our webinars are free, recorded, and available on our website, so we ensure that everyone, regardless of their location or schedule, can be part of our community. During the webinar, there will be closed captioning. At the end of the webinar, we're inviting you to join the after party where we will provide a link in the chat and you can join the conversation with our panelists in a live question and answer session. Early next week, you'll get an email with some resources about today's topic on play to help you investigate this issue even further. For over 20 years, the CAYL Institute has been working to advance the next generation of leaders for young children. You can learn more about our work by following us on Facebook, by watching our YouTube channel, or visiting our body of work on our website. As people in the CAYL community know well, we're following up our 2024 webinar series on courage with a 2025 focus on the way forward. Throughout this year, and even from day to day, many of us are asking ourselves, what is the way forward? We'd like to know what's on your mind, so please write in the chat and tell us what you're thinking about the way forward. And as you are sharing your ideas, we want to draw your attention to our professional values, developmental principles, ethical guidelines, and policy directives that form the core of our profession. All of these ideas have been developed over decades by leaders and people in our profession. So we ask you to keep these ideas in your heart so that our actions are aligned with our purpose. And to help you keep these ideas handy, we're going to send you a copy of many of these documents when you receive the recording of our webinar. As we navigate the way forward, we have a unique opportunity to uplift each other, to reinforce our shared values, to strengthen our capacity to sustain our progress, and to unite our fragmented field. We've already highlighted important issues this year. We've talked about resilience, we've talked about self-care, and we've explored the influence of technology on our young learners. But today we're going to focus on one of the most important principles that we have as child development specialists, and that is the importance of play. Play is a serious business, and we've known about how important it is since the ancient world. Plato advised us not to keep children to their studies by compulsion, but by play. We see scientists like Albert Einstein who pointed out that play is the highest form of research. Theorists like Piaget demonstrated that play is the work of childhood, and Fred Rogers showed us that play is so important for serious learning. The American Academy of Pediatrics joins a long list of organizations that conclude that play is not just about having fun, but it's about taking risks, experimenting, and testing boundaries. So if you agree with me that these theorists and philosophers and researchers and wise leaders have given us important wisdom, write in the chat and tell us, how do we apply this in our fast-moving pace of American childhood today? Why is it so hard for our American culture to embrace play? And what can we do about it? On average, we see that American elementary school children get about 27 minutes of recess a day. In Finland, they get 75 minutes a day. In Japan, they have 10 to 15 minutes of breaks every hour, along with longer recess periods, based on the idea that children's attention spans need this time. I think perhaps it's challenging for us in American education to value play because we have such a heavy focus on standardized testing. We have a very strong achievement-oriented culture, and we believe that we have to prepare students for the competitive job market very, very young in life. So many times this overshadows the benefits of our play-based beliefs. So what is the way forward? Our expert panel is going to share some ideas with us today. And our first guest is Kathy Hirsh-Pasek, who is from the Brookings Institute and Temple University. We're going to hear from Anthony Toombs, who's a founding member of the Life is Good Playmaker project. And we're going to hear from Robin Meisner from the Boston Children's Museum. What is the way forward? Kathy, let's start with you. Tell us, why can't we embrace play? What are you doing in your work to help us have a better understanding of play? Kathy, please join us. So happy to have you here on the CAYL Catalyst webinar series today.
It
How are
is,
you?
I'm great, and I'm even happier because I get to play with you, Valora. Thank you
Yay.
so much for that wonderful introduction. And a lot of the people in the chat are right on, telling us that the parents didn't know how to play, or that we have to model it and engage in it if we're going to have kids engage in it. So, I'm going to ask all of you a question. When's the last time you skipped? And how did it make you feel? There's something of a kind of release and play that could help a lot of these kids and even us who are walking around with such anxiety and such uncertainty today. So I invite you to come in and play. So I was going to give a little of the background that you kind of hinted on too, Valora. The first thing is that for some reason, in the past 20, 30 years, play became another four-letter word. People thought of it as the opposite of learning, that they had nothing to do with one another. But here is a revelation. The revelation from the work that I have done on the science of learning was that we were starting to understand how human brains learn. So let's think about it. We don't learn well when we are just passively hanging around. We don't learn really well when we're constantly distracted. We need to be engaged. We don't learn really well when something's not meaningful to us. We don't learn really well when we're hanging by ourselves and wish we were talking to other people, and when it's boring. And the number one word that comes out when we talk about how was school? What do you remember from school? Well, I should have had you guess that. But the number one word that comes out is boring. And it doesn't have to be that way. So here are the characteristics. And just do them one more time. When you're active and you're engaged and it's meaningful and it's socially interactive and you get to tinker with it and play in different ways with it and it's joyful, you learn better. Wait a minute. The characteristics of learning and how the brain learns are the same as the characteristics of how kids play. That is like a revelation. And once we know that, then we can harness playful moments to help kids learn. Now, let's just talk about what's going on in schools today. We went and just observed 1,100 observations of 41 classrooms, and this is what we saw. All right, for those of you out there, see if you can do this multiple guess test. What percentage of time are kids doing worksheets or sitting around just doing parallel work without having any engagement at all? You can put your answers in the chat, see if anybody gets it. But it turns out, actually, oh my God, you guys are right on. Look at this, 60, 85%. You have no idea how close you are. All right, well, what we found, it was about 50% of being talked at, and then another 26%. You see how close you really were? 26% of the time, we're telling the kids that they should be, focusing on the worksheet or on what we're saying, or they should be getting in a line for the next activity. Yep, keep adding it up. And then another 16%, they're not attentive because, after all, they're bored by the worksheet and aren't telling them that they have to pay more attention to the worksheet. Best answer, Rory has it, too much. So if you add all that up, about 92% of the time, the kids were kind of out to lunch or doing these worksheets. And then you might ask, how much of the time were they talking with their peers or actively discussing something in a class with open-ended questions? And the answer was a piddling 3%, and 3% of, having discussions and 2% of talking with peers. That's just not acceptable. And so what we're told is that what we need to do to help these kids learn is to give more worksheets, to have longer hours, and then it's all going to work out. So we've tried that, and I don't know if any of you saw the latest NAEP scores that came out, but we've been pounding reading and math for a long time, taking away recess, as you just heard from Valora, and not doing anything that is actively engaging, and the NAEP scores are terrible, right? 29%, 30% of kids, it's not really a grade level system, but are meeting expectations or above expectations in reading and math. So you would think we would come to a point where we would say, wow, it's not even really working. And by the way, this is not due to the pandemic. You had the same scores before the pandemic. So if it's not working this way, what can we do to help make it better? And so a lot of my work is centered around what can we do to help make it better. Um, we've come up with what we call our three-part equation. The first part of the equation is, do you have any idea who your kids are? What do we know about the kids that you're with every day? What are their beliefs, their values? What are their parents' values? How do we bring them into the conversation? So nesting it in community and cultural values. And the second part of our equation is to ask how kids learn. And you already know this, I'm getting to repeat myself. When they're active, engaged, meaningful, socially interactive, in something iterative and something joyful. And then the last piece is, what do we really want kids to learn when they're in our schools or even just in our homes? Don't we want them to come out as happy, healthy, caring, and thinking individuals who know they're reading and math for sure, but who are going to grow up to be good citizens? And I went into Trader Joe's and I asked people what they wanted for their children. What do you want for a graduate of your school? What do you want from a graduate from your home? And when I gave the two choices, to be happy and kind and caring and social and thinking and a good citizen of tomorrow and know your reading and math, or do you want them to do really well on the reading and math test? I did not once get parents say that they only cared about the grade on the test. Not once. So what are we doing? So I took that three-part equation, and with that three-part equation, I now am applying it to schools and to communities and community builds, and also to ed tech. And by putting this equation to work for all kids, we think it's going to help kids grow to be the kind of human beings that we want at the end. And finally, let me just say a little bit about what we want for those human beings at the end. We want them to be very good collaborators because everything starts with a strong relationship. Good communicators, so the kids have strong language skills and can get along and navigate in a world. They need to know their content, but we have AI these days. ChatGPT goes a long way. So we need to go beyond to have critical thinkers and to have creative innovators. And finally, to have confidence. The confidence to know that even if you didn't get it right, you should try again and persevere. And so when we put that together, we call that the 6 Cs. They work into the three-part equation. We're currently doing research, as I said, in ed tech. We're in schools today in 4 states in the country, in Virginia and Illinois, in California and Texas, where we're teaching a playful learning pedagogy based on these principles. And I wanted to just end right now by showing you just a pinch of what happens when you go into the community at places where people wait, where they hang, so that parents and kids can start having those conversations again. So I don't know if we can, Elizabeth, just show a few of these. But this is called Playful Learning Landscapes, where we're transforming cities into family-friendly, inclusive spaces infused with learning. Here's just a bus stop. And you can see that there's a bus stop in Philadelphia with a community that cared about that bus stop. That space was where Martin Luther King gave a speech. And so we put a group of activities on that bus stop. 100 community members participated. And by gosh, if parents didn't put their phones down and start having conversations with their kid. Next slide, you can just see what that bus stop looks like in Santa Ana, California, where this formerly Mexican population asked to see a game they played as kids called Loteria. And the next slide, please, shows you just a little bit of what you can put in a park. Here's a game where, look, we changed what dice were, and now they're fraction dice. And now they play games like the shape zone that you see here, running on the board and going fractions, 4.5 spaces, 3.5 spaces, 5 3/4 spaces. And as they do, they're talking about fractions, which otherwise are really hard to learn. Next slide, please. Here you see we did in a library. They're climbing, but their climbing wall is made of letters, so they make words. We carved out a space. These were community ideas right inside the bookshelves. And now we have puzzle pieces, tangram pieces, and they put them together to make the seating arrangements. Next slide, please. Here you see fraction ball, another game to learn fractions. Just going out to recess and fraction ball where you throw the 1 1 or the half line of 0.5 or the 1/4 or the 0.25. Going to recess 4 times for 15 minutes. This is Andy Bustamante's brilliant idea. They came in and they passed a standardized test of fraction decimal conversion. Next slide, please. And this is what we're doing in hospital waiting rooms. All of a sudden, parents are sitting down and they're talking with kids and they're highly engaged. And the community members help us design what the mural should be. So let's go back to the basics, the end of slides, please. We'll come back to the mainframe. Well, all we're doing is taking how brains learn, playful learning, and we're putting it into action through a 3-part equation that can make the world and your home and your schools look a little bit more joyful as kids learn a little more deeply. And by the way, when we do that, kids want to come to school and teachers want to stay in school. So it looks like a good equation to us. Thanks. And I'm turning it over to Ant.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kathy. Yes, man, that's amazing. I love to hear a similar mind thinking about the same, it's so fascinating to me every time I hear someone talking about everything that I believe in my core and what happens in the mind space when we start talking about the things that really matter, because they're extra thoughts that, may have never even thought about. And it's like, oh, wow, that's right. And I can apply that to make all the difference as we go forward. We're here talking about playfulness, man, play really matters. How are we really packing it back in and making the power of play matter the most? Man, there's so many layers to this thing called play. I'm Ant Toombs, y'all. I am one of the founder members at the Playmaker project. I was a trauma counselor for many, many years before becoming, I guess, like a joyologist now, if you will. As a trauma counselor, the end game was always getting back, getting people back to their normal baseline or their normal base of joy, because we believe that joy is the freeing factor in all things. At the Playmaker Project, we have a vision where we want to see life good for all kids. And the number one core ingredient in playfulness consists of the joy factor. This is a deeper um, sense than happiness. Happiness is fleeting and external. I had my cup of coffee earlier and it was hot. and I was happy that I had my cup of coffee. But once it was cold, yeah, I wasn't so happy no more. But the joy is deeper, holds your hand even during sorrow and sadness. And without the joy, it's like impossible to engage in true playfulness. And when I'm thinking about playfulness, thinking about the core ingredients of playfulness, to be free and joyful so that we can engage, connect, and explore the surrounding world. And in all my work as a trauma counselor, as a parent, I'm a parent of three and a father, I'm a grandfather of four grandsons, as a matter of fact. Um, where one is a teenager now. Just the other day, turned 13. It's amazing that that is happening. And I truly believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that playfulness is the single most important ingredient that we can nurture in the life of a child, so that they can overcome all adversity. And when I talk about a child, what I'm really talking about is children of all ages. So sometimes we consider the child, and it's like, whoa, the offering to the child or the community that I want to serve. And as long as I can create this safe, loving, joyful, engaging environment for them, then everything's going to be all right. And then they show up and we're looking to engage them there. And guess what? It doesn't feel engaging, connecting, and explorative with joy for them. And what I've learned over years is that the crisis for a child is when the adults around them don't know what to do. Children are looking for the cues as to what to do next, and more is actually caught than taught. So, yeah, this is the environment children should be playing there. But without the safe, loving, joyful, engaging environment offering the permission, and maybe it's by way of display with great zeal and joy. And as Kathy mentioned, active engagement. Man, there's so much that I could double down on what Kathy mentioned when she talked, because it's spot on. Without being truly immersed in now, it might be hard to experience joy in the moment. And if we're not experiencing joy in the moment, well, we might not be making the greatest connections because it's not from a place of authenticity and love. And if that's not the case, then maybe we're not creating the most safe, loving environment, engaging environment where children feel safe and empowered to do the thing that they came to do, play. And again, this play is much deeper than the silliness and laughter. To be joyful so that you can engage and connect and explore with the surrounding world. I mean, again, for a long time, I've been exploring these ideas, and I still can't come to the conclusion as to, wow, what's really most important than that in the life of a child? And then, wow, it started happening to me. As many of you been experiencing this too. We've been crossing up and growing up to older children. And now at this stage in the game, playfulness looks different. And the long and short is, yeah, you can't spread what you don't have. If you really want to create an environment for others, we must make sure that we're embodying this playfulness for us. Because a lot of children that we serve today, especially in today's time, I mean, there's so much that children are being exposed to. They're baloney detectors. That's right. Yeah, they smell us. They know when it's not authentic. And when we're not really wearing our playfulness disposition and showing up with our most, positive disposition and way of being, then yeah, they know right away. And again, more is caught than taught. So sometimes go and play doesn't equate with, the safe, loving, joyful, engaging adult who says go and play is not actually engaged in play. So to get back into it for ourselves is critical and important. Yes. At the Playmaker project, we specialize in that, creating those environments where the provider, The frontline childhood professional is connected to community and invited to experiences where play happens for children of all ages. Yes, that includes all of us that are here on today. Because the embodiment of this playfulness is most critical and important. You know, the best way that I could probably explain is to share. I'm not sure if it's okay if I can share my screen, but I would love to share a couple of slides myself that may help us get a little more grounded because I really only want to make a few points, you all. And I'll start right here with point number one. This is the way to get back, to engage in connecting and exploring with children and communities that deserve to have playfulness as their umbrella. Number one, practice Salbona. What's Salbona, Aunt? Glad you asked. Salbona is a Zulu proverb. When two people are on the path, they come in contact with each other, they greet each other with Salbona. But it's much deeper than just a, hey, how you doing? You know, we as children of all ages deserve to be seen, heard, and valued, and it's more polite. It's a greeting that's covered with a warm tone, warm gesture, conveys more value, more worth. So you really slow down the moment when you Salbona someone instead of, hey, how you doing? And we just keep it moving. You know, hey, how you doing? And waiting for a response with a smile is also playfulness. Wow. Yeah, to engage, connect, and explore. Point number two I want to make here. Man, the children and most of the families that we serve for that matter, because those children come with families. Yeah, they don't need us showing up to work. Work's hard. Work looks hard. Work doesn't always feel like we're truly immersed in the moment. We're checking boxes at work. What children and families need us to do as professionals that know about the power of play is come to play. So when we show up, we're already embodying the spirit of this playfulness. Again, the freedom to engage, connect, and explore. So we also have to give ourselves permission to be here now in the moment. And play is loaded. We talk about it, we talk about it, we talk about it, and everybody wants to know, you know, it's like, well, what's the difference between this, you know, I don't know how to really when to activate it, but it's like the difference between knowledge and wisdom. You know, we know that knowledge is like knowing a tomato's a fruit. You know, a lot of us know that a tomato is actually a fruit, but the wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. You learn when to activate variations of play over time. What is play and what does it look like? Any activity can be play. It's all about the right approach. And when we approach any activity with the spirit of play, not the toxic, overwhelming positivity, but we work it with the right approach, a safe, loving, joyful, engaging adult makes it play. Yes. And this is totally from an optimistic perspective, I know. But man, we got to be able to see it. We got to be able to see those opportunities, those moments, regardless of what it looks like around us. Here's optimism right here, my best definition for it. Okay. Yes, good people. I know some of us can see it right now. I'll help us out so we can see it even better. There it is right there. You know, optimism is the ability to see the good, regardless of the circumstances, the challenges amidst. And if we can see the good, oh no, yes, as a matter of fact, not no. We now have an opportunity to grow the good. If we can see it, we can focus on it, grow it, and then we have an opportunity to leverage the good. I know I'm not really sharing too many slides, but I got a few more that are really important for us to visualize. And this might nail it home for us because I talk about optimism all the time. And I really want to get to the fruit of the human being. You know, when I look at the top of this ripe tree of optimism, see the superpowers of gratitude and creativity and love and authenticity. That's right, human superpowers. Wouldn't it be great if we all had 10% of any one of these core ingredients, we'd probably be playing a little more. Yeah. But there's a problem here. When you look down at the base here, because optimism doesn't just take root anywhere, when we really want to create an environment that fully is conducive of playfulness, we got to strip it down and make sure that we're planting proper seeds. And I'm talking about the seeds of joy. That's right. The seeds of internal control. This is that safety and empowerment. There's nothing like a safe, loving, joyful, engaging adult that shows up embodying playfulness, who's not afraid of the moment, who stands and rises to the challenge with active engagement, not concerned about time running out, so that the real connection happens. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And once they know you care, you can engage and connect and explore with them. And playfulness really starts happening. When you plant the proper seeds, now optimism can take root because the soil is conducive. And now you begin to see that ripe hanging fruit of creativity and authenticity and courage and love. And wow, look at this stuff. Man, the world just looks a lot better. As a matter of fact, I love this so much. I wrote a poem about it. And I hope y'all like to hear it because I got it for you right now. I'll say it for you live and recite it for you. And this will take us on home. All right. Yeah, that's right. I got it flat. And I'll bring it down. I'm not scaring anybody away. It's really not about, the music in the background, just a little cadence on point. But pay attention to the screen because this is very important, those core superpower ingredients that we need to nurture as providers, as professionals, so that we can continue to offer. All right, here it is. Pay attention. Now more than ever, the world needs superheroes, but not the kind that fly. See, leaping tall buildings seems too dangerous to try. Now I believe in superheroes, but not from up above. It exists inside us all, and we save the day with love. Yes, love. See, it's love and everyday saving missions. It's one of 10 superpowers that brings our best self to fruition. You don't need a mask. You don't need a cape. You don't need Spider-Man's permission. The typical ambition to discover this optimistic disposition. Now take gratitude. Yeah, that's the attitude. And see, I don't have to do, I get to do. There's a whole new latitude, but it takes practice. Playing piano, on the perfect path. Half full or half empty, and just be grateful for the glass. See, being open is what can take us far. Our suffering is rooted in wanting things to be different than they are. Who really needs some X-ray vision? Every time you pass a locker room, you gotta make some ethical decisions. And what's cool about seeing things that we're not supposed to see? Wouldn't it be cooler to create things until now have yet to be, like beautifying a people from sea to shining sea, or liberating a people who never knew what it's like to be free? You see, this creativity, yes, is the superpower that can transform me to we. Now I'm sorry, but I gotta drop the F word. Fun. Yeah, I said it. And no, you haven't misheard. See, fun gets a bad rap seen by some as superficial or trite. But true fun has the power to heal and the power to unite. With fun comes laughter. All people laugh the same. You ever wonder why we all laugh at jokes even when the jokes are lame? You see, humor has been part of being human since man first walked the rap. This humor is a superpower because it allows us to connect. Now, Popeye used to say, I am what I am. That's all I am. Or was that before or after he down that Spanish can? See, weakness, strength, joy, and pain is life's inherent synchronicity. If we can create both within ourselves, then we get authenticity. Now, authenticity ain't easy. It takes courage to keep it real. Others can tell you where and when and how to drive, but it's you behind that wheel. It's easy to quit. Like I'm too this, I'm too that. I'm too old, I'm too fat. Or I'm too white, or I'm too black. I doubt is inexhaustible. But if we took the time to lift the I am, what makes it impossible possible? Superman has superpowers. He can stand in front of speeding trains. And you and I got human power. We can stand beside each other. The passion over muscle any days where humanity ends and starts. Our whole is only as great as the sum of our hearts. Now, I know that life can be hard, there's no shortage on pain. I know that life can be sad, tears may fall like rain. I know that life can be fast, things not understood. I know that there were times when you didn't think you could. So let's keep fighting to make things right like superheroes should. And if just for that one reason alone, I believe that life is good. I said, let's keep fighting to make things right like superheroes should. And just for that one reason alone, I believe that life is good. Yeah. Night or day or night. Life is good. And like my main man, Charlie Bird Parker said, if you don't live it, it won't come out your horn. So, what is it that you're going to do to bring more joy into your life? Good people. What are you going to do? Who are you going to play with? Yeah, what are we going to do to keep ourselves strong and balanced? What are you going to do to stay inspired? Just thought it'd be cool for us to see those words together so that we can have them resonate within ourselves. Take care of you, and you will be taking care of the surrounding world. No one's joy is more important than yours. And that's how we truly embody and help playfulness to spread. I'm going to pass it on over to Robin right now.
Thank you so much, Ant. I don't even really know how to follow that one because that was absolutely amazing. And I'm just have to tell you all that my computer's done something weird in the Windows way, where all of a sudden it popped up the news of the day, which is not something I want to see right now, especially following Ant's amazing
You're amazing too.
Chris. So I'm Robin, I'm at the Boston Children's Museum, and you can tell that by these amazing white walls behind me, which really don't show anything about a children's museum, sadly. So instead, I'd like to offer you this pink glittery unicorn, because that's much more children's museum. I want to take us back a little bit to where Kathy started us off of saying, when was the last time you skipped? To do something even a little deeper. And this is something we do in almost every training we do at the museum about play. And we've borrowed this from the tradition of play workers, which if you're not familiar, Google play workers and check out the work that they do, particularly across the UK. And so what I'd love you to do is to take a moment. We normally spend a lot more time on this, but I'm going to give you like 3 deep breaths to do this. And I'd love you to think about a particular memory from your own childhood where you were playing. Probably weren't a toddler because you probably don't remember that. But when you were like 4, 5, 6, 7, and you were truly playing. So just take a deep breath and try and think of a play memory. Now, what I'll tell you is that I saw in the chat a couple of folks saying, you know, younger folks today, younger parents, younger caregivers, they don't play as much anymore. And while that's true, every time we've done this exercise, we've then asked people to share their play memories with us. And the play memories that they share all follow trends, and those trends are not changing. So the play memories people tend to think about are things like, oh, amazing, Brenda. If folks want to put into the chat their play memories, that would be fantastic. But the things people tend to think about are things that are play memories that are outside or in a special place within the inside, maybe a basement or an attic or under a table. They tend to be, not always, they tend to be without adults in them. Most people don't remember the adults in their play memories. The adults were probably there, or depending like my age people, adults were not there. We just went off and played. But those adults might have been there, but they're not a huge part of it. It's about people's play memories tend to be about taking risks in some ways, whether it's social, emotional, or physical risks, or times where you're with your friends, or for some people on their own, an individual. They really change and they really depend on the individuals, but they tend to be about outside, hidden from the view of others, tending to be away from their adults. And then I want you to take another moment to think about the factors that shaped your play. Play is entirely individual. There's preferences, there's culture, there's family style or situation, there's the location in which you had the opportunity to play in or not. Everyone's play is different, and it should be, but everyone plays, and we know this. So when we think about play, one of the ways that we often talk about it here at Boston Children's Museum is from, this is a quote of some child someplace, somebody probably made it up, but we still love it. So from a child, play is what I do when everyone else has stopped telling me what to do. So with that, I will say, as somebody who has worked in museums since I was 14 years old, One of my first bosses and mentors used to say all of the time, and she was the executive director of a children's museum, in a perfect world, there would be no need for children's museums. And I will say we need them, probably now more than ever, and probably now more than ever, especially in the States. So what is a children's museum? For folks who don't know, I'm like seeing who's in this room, I'm betting most of you know, but children's museums are this weird, quirky thing, and they're not ubiquitous across the world. Children's museums came from, actually, Boston is the second oldest children's museum in the world. Brooklyn Children's Museum is the first. Boston was started by a group of science teachers who wanted to be able to bring, oh, the Monshire Museum in New Hampshire is amazing, Brenda, yes. I should stop looking at the chat so much and keep going. So Boston was started by a group of science teachers who brought natural history objects into schools. Think rocks, minerals, shells, dead stuffed animals. And we all still have them actually behind that wall. We have a collection of about 20 to 40,000 objects here. But then in the 60s, Mike Spock, who was the inspiration for what children's museums are today, was an inspirational executive director here at the museum. And what he really did was to shift children's museums thinking and to shift museums thinking into being not a place about something, but a place for someone. And that someone are the children, or someones are the children, and now more and more the adults in their lives. So what we do here and what children's museums do across the country is that we focus on creating environments and opportunities for play. And this has changed even since Mike Spock's world in the 60s, where it was about hands-on, but now it's more and more about play. We are a built environment. People like me, I'm the director of exhibits here at Boston. We create spaces for children and families to play in. So we scaffold experiences. And we believe here that learning happens best through play and exploration. And we focus on supporting children in developing and practicing their habits of mind, ways of thinking and being open to possibilities, persisting, taking risks, respecting themselves and others, more and more things like that, not content. And when we do this, we create experiences that are play and exploration. But here we differentiate those two. So play and exploration are different things. Does it matter to our visitors? No, not at all. But it matters to people like me and probably a lot of you because play itself matters. And in our field, in education, in the wider community, more and more, lots of things that are not play are called play. And we at Boston Children's Museum, we believe that we actually do a disservice by calling everything play. Not everything a child does is play, and that's okay. That's actually good. Not everything we do here at our Children's Museum, and not everything that happens in classrooms or in other spaces is play, and that's okay. But when we do play, let's think about how we can do it really well for the children and the adults in their lives. So when we think about free play, right, that is play at its purest. What if I was a kid going out into, lucky enough to go out into a safe forest and mess around doing anything I wanted, that play would be that free play. And that's not quite what we can do here at a children's museum because again, we're a built environment. So we try to offer lots of opportunities for children to make choices and to engage in the ways they want to in our spaces. We believe that we're not creating everything for everyone, but something that's gonna spark something in a child. And it might be different each time they come. One of the things that's really tricky here and in all children's museums is that 50% of our audience, over half of our audience, are the adults in children's lives. And so we need to think about how do we support those adults. And some of the stuff I've seen coming through is how do we get adults to understand and value play in the same ways that we do and we know they want to. And I know I don't have a ton of time left, but I'm going to tell you just one experiment that we did at the previous museum that I worked at, which was Providence Children's Museum, which was to give the adults a photo mission. So we said to the adults, while your kids are exploring and playing, we want you to take a picture of problem solving. We gave them no more information other than that. And then we talked to them after, and we saw picture after picture of like child running out of the screen or a child doing something strange. And really what the adults said was, oh, in this picture, I saw my kid while they were playing having to navigate a social problem with another child. Or I saw my kid trying to figure out how to climb a ladder, and I didn't even realize how much thought goes into that. But while they were playing, they were having to figure that out. And so what I wanted to highlight here is that we can help adults see the value of play if we can get them to slow down and pause and to think about play in the same way that we do. And there are ways that we can get them to prompt them to do that. And to appreciate and notice the value of what happens during children's play. So I'm just gonna pause and to end so we can get to the amazing panel discussion where you can all, I think Laura is gonna ask us some questions, but to say that I truly believe that we do need children's museums, probably more now than ever, and to be champions of play alongside all of you.
Wow. If everybody would just join me, it would be amazing. Slow down and pause. Slow down and pause at the bus stop. Slow down and pause in our own worlds to make it authentic, that we're showing up authentically for children. Show up and pause in the Boston Children's Museum or in all these other places. This is just so amazing. I loved what you said, Aunt, when you said, if it's not in us, we can't show it. And I think this is a moment where it's very challenging for us as early childhood educators. So how do we, and the teacher, the assistant teacher, all of us in the child's world showing up with that joy matters. How do we do that in the environment in which we are living today?
Yes, it's always a great question, and there's never a cookie cutter answer. And what my share out always is to make sure that we're focusing on our own internal joy. And I double down on it again and again and again. I heard something that Robin just shared too. Yeah, not every moment is a playful moment. And I totally agree because I'm always grateful to have the glass. I'm really focusing on the play and the joy experience, right? But it's not about every moment. No, it's the activity, it's the intentionality of what we want to do and being very intentional on when we use specific engagement activities and experiences to galvanize it even greater. And I recommend not trying to invite others to engage in activity that you don't really like yourself. If you really like it yourself, then it's more likely that you're going to spread more joy when presenting it, facilitating it, hosting it, and allowing others to have an experience.
There's so many things we could talk about, and I want to encourage all of you to join, click the link and join the after party if you want to ask questions of these three experts. But one thing I want to bring up that came up in the chat is people really wanting children to make choices. And I think, Kathy, what people really find in these school environments and other environments that you work in is the lack of opportunity for children to make choices. I'm wondering, Robin, if you and Kathy can talk about choice and how important choice is.
Well, I think agency and choice is really important. And I think we rob children of agency. We do everything in our power to kill curiosity and to kill their sense that they can do it. By giving them these horrible multiple guess, tests where there's only one right answer, by not letting kids explore, by not really having a sense that they can discover something new and that is worthy. So we don't let them find out who they are. And I think that's tragic. I think children's museums are about the best places in town to allow that to happen and to emerge, so naturally. And what you were talking about, my God, that tree, doesn't it say it all? So thank you for sharing that. But I just want to say one thing in response to what you said, Anton, where you were going, Valor, I think. Times are terrible out there right now. There's particularly hard for all of us who work with families and children and care about families and children for whom hate is not a word that we use, and it's not a word that we want our children to use. And so I'm going to propose something radical. And the radical is change the mindset. The worst thing you can do with haters and bullies is change the mindset. We be the positive. We go out with smiles. We go out with energy. We go out and say, no, we are a world that cares about other human beings, and we're going to change it. And you may try to make us bow to this negativity, but we're not going there.
Thank you. That's why we said in the opening comments, we're really going to share with everybody on this webinar all of our ethical values and principles and all of the things that are the core of our profession. And we're going to send those foundational documents out to each and every one of you so that we keep them in our heart. What's your thoughts, Robin?
So just to jump back to the idea of choice,
Mm-hmm.
because the world is horrible, and I acknowledge that. And now I'm going to talk about children and choice. One of the things that we think about here a lot is, and I mentioned it briefly, is something for everyone, not everything for everyone. And so when we're designing opportunities for play, what we're aiming to do is to figure out how we can offer lots of different ways in and ways out, different opportunities for children to engage, no matter how they like to engage, and they get to choose, and to support the adults in their lives in not pushing them too much to that, but at the same time, also accepting that whatever outcome the child wants it to be is a good outcome in that moment for that child. So just to give you an example, we invited the entire school district from the city of Haverhill, and I know there's some folks from Massachusetts on here. So the entire pre-K through 5 came to do a museum takeover last spring. And it was pure joyful chaos, and all of our staff and all of the chaperones just held our breath. And at one moment in time, we have a bubbles exhibit, and there's lots of tables and different experiences, and you can step inside a bubble and blow fog bubbles and all sorts of things. But at some point, the children decided what they really needed to do was to take all the bubble solution out of the table and turn it into like a giant sudsy, chaotic mess. And I looked at our head of housekeeping and I said, Midian, I'm so sorry. And we just laughed and we said, this is what the kids need now. And we let them have at it, and then we cleaned it up later. And I know not everyone has that choice, but that is one of the things that is the adults and children's museums, we can make the choice to provide the space for kids to have the choice. And I think the role of many of us who are educators and caregivers of children is to think about what opportunities we're comfortable with and when and how can we allow it to happen? When can we say yes?
Thank you. That's very important. When can we say yes? And how can we say yes? One thing I'd like all of us to think about, and Kathy, you shared some of your research on play and what's happening in schools. Even in the early childhood world, with all of our good intentions, there's a lot of parallel work going on where we're giving children worksheets and we're asking them to all color the pumpkin orange or whatever it is that we're doing. Lots of parallel work, sadly, still going on. How can we address this? And I will say that some teachers will tell us that they feel compelled to do this kind of thing by their administrators. I'm wondering if the three of you might speak to this parallel work that's going on with young children.
Well, just so you know that the research I gave you was actually from 5-year-olds, 5 and 6-year-olds. And yes, it's going on with much younger children. And I think we all, again, have to stand up for the kids and say, no, we are the professionals. And sometimes we don't act like it. Sometimes we let parents and people who are in policy or in state governments dictate what we're supposed to do when they're not the experts and we are. And I want to press that for a moment. I would love to see us be better ambassadors for us as professionals. We are dealing with the greatest natural resource that this country has, the children, right? Now, we would never say that you should have policymakers and business people tell you what the dentist should be doing when you go in to have your teeth cleaned or to have a cavity. We don't do that. We don't say, oh, pediatricians, this is how you have to do exactly what you do. But then it comes to us, and here we are working hard as early child care workers and teachers, And they come in and they think they should dictate, well, these kids should be reading by age 4. No, they shouldn't, you know? And by the way, the studies have been done. It doesn't matter whether you start at 4 or you start at 6. It comes out the same in the wash. So why aren't we helping them become better human beings? If we believe it, if we know it, then let's exert our own professionalism and let's take what we know about the power of play and move it all the way up. And I mean all the way up through middle school, through high school. And I'm happy to tell you that it is how I start every one of my college courses.
Thank you.
I'm
Well,
with you, Kathy.
go ahead, Ann. Yeah,
You
wonderful.
know, sorry, Valeria, I just want to double down again on what Kathy just said. You know, I love it because that's the same type of zeal, energy, and tenacity that I show up with as well. You know, when we know, why don't we just go ahead and break those rules, change them with all the playfulness that we could ever muster up? Why not? We can do it. We are the ones who are alive right now. So we can push to change those things even when, you know, they say that we can't. You know, we offer training, resources, and support to frontline childhood professionals everywhere. And I went to go visit a school after a deliverable, and they put up their benchmarks in the hallway and the wall, and put up great pictures of all the playful engagement that they were doing with children. And they connected yarn string to the benchmarks and the activities so that they didn't have to explain to the powers that be every time they showed up to say, why are these kids playing so much? Here it is there. This is what's important. Now get out the way so we can continue to engage, connect, or help children
I'm going
thrive.
to give you the last word, Robin. So Ant's told us to follow the science, follow the research. Robin?
I guess I would say follow the children. They
Mm,
can lead the way for us and they should lead the way. The children know what they need. And if we ask them, they will tell us. There's an amazing project here in Boston Public Schools and Cambridge Public Schools where 5-year-olds are coming up with ideas for the city. What does the city need? And when you ask the children, they will tell you. And I think if we let the kids be our spokespeople, that would go a long way.
absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank all of you for joining us. I want to invite each and every one of you to click the link that you've been given in the chat if you want to interact with these speakers. So join us in the after party and you can talk with our speakers live. We'd love to hear your questions and your comments. Also, I want to encourage you to join us next month, May 1st, where we're going to talk about our professional promise to belonging, equity, and inclusions. Those are great words for us. We have some amazing speakers who are going to double down and talk to us about belonging, equity, and inclusion. So please join us next month. Also, as always, I want to thank the amazing team at the CAYL Institute and thank you all for joining us. And I'll see you in the after party. Good night.